The times that I see producers really fucked up is when they've signed something, and Mike Trampy posts these agreements all the time, and I'm shocked at how crazy they are. Literally, he posted one that said, this producer, out of the goodness of their heart, using that terminology, using out of the goodness of their heart, is granting artists a free copy of this beat and full ownership. I'm like, who would sign this? What's going down, everyone? It is the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast. I'm DJ Pain One. I'm here with Erinn Knight and Dame Ritter, and we're back for another episode. Not because anyone in particular demanded it, but we're still here. How's everyone feeling today?
I'm feeling good this week. I got a physical therapy session today to start rehabbing my knee. I've started already, but I got an actual physical therapy appointment because I have to go through these sessions in order to get a shot. They said they can't just give me the shot without going through the physical therapy session. So here I go. But my knee's actually feeling better. I've been doing some other stuff for it. But yeah, I'm feeling better this week.
It's going to feel great once you get that microchip.
Yeah.
If you hear explosions, that's my tile being redone. Sorry about that. I'm going to try to catch it before it happens. But it's hard to anticipate when the mallet is going to drop. So, from a floor down. So nothing like no one's bulldozing my house or anything, even though it may sound that way. Erinn, how are you feeling?
I'm good. I had the first meeting of the triple E's from the Excellence Academy last night. And that's the people who get an extra session with me and they want the extra learning. And it was crazy because I got on to teach. Well, really, it was supposed to be a get to know you session and everybody didn't get on. I knew it was the first one, so it was going to be a little bit up and down. So I just wanted to ask questions, see where everybody was, what they wanted to learn in this. And it ended up being such an encouraging session for me because one of the guys literally spent the whole time being like, man, I just see so much in you. I'm so excited about doing this with you. And he just spent like 30 minutes encouraging me in what we're building with the Excellence Academy. And I was like, wow, I thought I was going to come on here and talk to y'all. And it was just encouraging to me. So I'm doing really good. Shout out to Jay Scribe. He's a very dope artist out of the New Mexico area. So yeah, I'm great.
Oh, that's a familiar name. Okay.
Dope.
Congrats on the launch. Definitely keep us posted on how it goes because it's needed. I just hope people continue to tap in for you.
Okay, so Dame, you wanted to rant about this new COVID variant, right?
Definitely not. I don't want to talk about anything COVID related on this podcast.
My notes are wrong. Sorry.
But Erinn had a topic that we were supposed to talk about last week, so you could go ahead and cue that up, Erinn.
Awesome. So I want to talk about the fact that Nipsey Hussle's final album, his only posthumous album, is dropping as an NFT. And I find this to be fascinating because Nipsey was the first person to ever drop an NFT, I think, in the world, or at least in the music world, right? Because when he dropped his album, I should have looked up the title. I can't even remember the title. Several years ago, he sold 1,000 albums for $100 a piece. People thought he was crazy, but he said, why would I go to my label, move a million units to make $100,000 when I can just sell them direct to consumer and make $100,000? So that's what he did. But when you bought the album, it also came out on DatPiff. It still came out on places like common mixtape places. So originally people thought it was never going to drop, but he was like, no, it's still going to drop. But buying this album gives you access to a private concert that I'm going to do that you get to watch the video of and different things like that. So that's literally an NFT. You get people are like, well, I could just screenshot an NFT. You can, but your NFT is connected to blockchain, which gives you exclusive rights to stuff. And it says that you're the owner of this thing. And I am not at all the NFT savant. I don't know much about NFTs. I'm not somebody who's a big proponent of NFTs just yet. I'm still understanding the world. I'm still trying to figure out if it has real world application. If you guys want to come for me in the comments and teach me something, cool. But
they're coming. The crypto bros are coming because you said because you're basically saying it is an NFT, like literally they're going to receive that way. And they're going to come. That's not what you're saying, right? Or are you saying that? Are you saying
I'm saying it was an
literally?
NFT before. I'm saying the only thing that it was lacking was blockchain, but it came with it came with a way for you to verify that you were the actual owner of one of 1,000 CDs. So I still feel like the only thing it lacked was a crypto transaction, So it was the original music NFT. And the thing was, I was talking, we talked about this really quickly last week without getting not on camera. And then my business partner, Brandon, sent me a video of a guy saying the exact thing that I had told him. I'm like, yeah, it seems so on brand for Nipsey's album to drop posthumously as an NFT because he's the originator. He's the first person who got people into overpaying. And I won't say overpaying because he set the value and people bought it. I remember hearing that Jay-Z bought like 5 of the albums. People were like, you're never going to sell that many. And I remember being like, who's going to pay $100 for an album? That was my introduction to Nipsey Hussle. And he did it. And now here we are. Posthumously, he's dropping the same thing. I don't know all the details of that. But my point in this is that a lot of times we try to act as if technology leads the art world. But truth of the matter is art shapes the technology world and artists are always the leaders. And I think a lot of times, especially in this new Web3 era, a lot of artists are not even Web3, Web2 right now. A lot of artists are bucking it. Like we talked about it last week. I don't want to have to do a reel. I don't want to have to do a TikTok. People feel forced into the mechanism as artists, but I just want to encourage artists, creatives. We're the ones setting the trend. We're the ones setting the tone. You just have to be awake enough to set the real trend and go after something that hasn't been done yet. I think a lot of artists want to be creative, but they want to get in the stream of what's popular or what's easy or what somebody else has already done. A lot of artists don't want to truly innovate. A lot of artists will say, and we talked about this last night on the Excellence Academy, I'm different. I'm not like everybody else. Nobody's doing what I'm doing. But the truth of the matter is everybody's doing what you're doing. You have not found a niche in it yet, which is why you're not seeing the success, which is, you did your interview with La Russell and he's like, everybody's talking about posting 52 times, like posting once a week or twice a week. He said, I'm giving myself, by posting 3 times a day, 1,000 chances to change my life, meaning that any one of those posts could take off, or the aggregate of all of those posts could cause his life to be different a year from now. And I think that that's the thing. Most artists don't quantify data in that way and don't see the mechanism of technology as just a conduit for their genius, right? Most artists now, or not, I won't even say most, a lot of artists who complain feel like they have to succumb to the technology that's available. That's why I think that there's a ton of pushback for Web3. Like this is not really for artists. This is just tech bros. I agree with some of that sentiment, but I also believe that tech bros didn't invent this type of thought process. It's just the natural progression of the world. And Nipsey was able to see some of these things, and other people have been able to predict some of these things, and those are the winners. And I just want to encourage, again, creatives, if you are discouraged by the options available to you, create something new. That's like in your DNA is to create. And I think a lot of times people get caught up in looking at, well, what's the most beneficial, or what's the industry standard, or what are people calling me to, or what am I supposed to do so that I can get to the next level and then do what I want to do. Do what you want to do right now. It will pay off. You just have to be resolute in it and have a real plan about it. But that's my 2.5 cents. I think that Nipsey has been a genius. It's been proven that he's a genius. But the fact that his album is dropping posthumously as an NFT, which is something that he's already created and been in the world of, I think is just a testament to how big of a legacy he has built as an artist.
Overall, like I agree with you, but the crypto bros, like I said, are coming because it wasn't necessarily an NFT. Not only was it not on blockchain, but it doesn't have like resellable value. Like it's over. Like nobody's reselling Nipsey's album right now, and Nipsey's not earning commission on albums that are sold today and into the future. Because if it was a real NFT, those albums probably would be worth a lot of money at this point, and he would be earning a lot of royalties. And then I would also push back at like Nipsey being, and this isn't your main point, I get that, but he's not the first person to do something like that in terms of like, I mean, because I look at it the same as like, you know, people dropping special edition albums where there's only 100 available or like 50 available, or signed copies where there's only 25 available to increase the price and value of those CDs. So I don't want to take away from Nipsey's genius. I think he was a genius, and he was always looking to push the boundaries and push things forward. But I can't even give him credit for being the first person to do that, because like there's been special edition albums, limited edition for a long time. But I get your point about artists kind of leading technology and not the other way around, because LaRussell was talking about a lot of that. He has a new concept that I think should be an NFT, where he has something called the gold card, which is going to give people access to every show in the future, and is going to give discounted merch at, I think, 50% off merch at shows, 10% off merch on the site. So no matter when he performing, if you have his gold card, and the price is negotiable, there's not even a set price. Like you have to email him and submit an offer. So LaRussell has a lot of Nipsey in him, but that I was telling him should be an NFT, right? And it should come, because you can couple a physical product with an NFT, because I think that, you know, if his career is going to be long, which I'm assuming that it is, you know, that could have a lot of value into the future, and he should want to get paid as people transfer ownership of that card. I'm not completely sold on this whole NFT hype, but I see a lot of value in them. You know, but I'm going to talk about that actually in a couple of weeks again on the MEC, when I have a lady named Janice who's running a new NFT platform. So I'm going to, yeah. So I'm going to be, I'm probably going to be playing devil's advocate the whole session without being disrespectful, because I just see a lot of holes. Anytime I see people just hyping things up, just, you know, it's the same crypto bros that said that ETH was going to be 10,000 by the end of the year and Bitcoin was going to be 100,000 by the end of the year. It's the same cats that are hyping up music NFTs. And I'm like, well, you told us that. And I think ETH is now at like not even 4,000 and Bitcoin is hovering around 40,000. But these cats swore on their life. But when you see the people that are hyping it up, most of them are like invested, have some type of financial interest in the space. So they're really just hyping things up. You got to cut through the clutter. Like, I'm not dismissing NFTs entirely. I think there's value in them, and I don't want to just go off. I know this wasn't your intention to go off on this tangent. So tap into the Music Entrepreneur Club in a couple of weeks and we'll have
I just want to say I agree with you. I kind of also forget the resale thing that's what makes it an NFT. So you're right. The reason I was saying I feel like he's the first in the space is because when most people do a limited edition, especially if it's like an exclusive packaging, you can't get the digital version of that. Do you know what I'm saying? And just the fact that he still released the digital version, people thought he was insane, and he still sold out of the other one. That's the distinction I was making, but I'm rocking with you. I agree.
For sure. But they coming for you. Watch. They coming in the comments. I was just trying to fight some of them before you read them.
So separately from the contentions, from an artist perspective, I feel like the resale thing makes me a little bit nervous, just because suddenly I'm seeing people treat these bodies of work, these albums, as, you know, collector's items, investments. And I understand they are, but this is something new for music. Never before have people specifically purchased an album, not because they necessarily liked the album and wanted to hear it, but because they saw value of it in the future as an investment.
That's not true. That's literally record labels. That's why they own masters.
I'm talking about on the consumer side. It's not something that the consumer market has ever had access to. And I feel like it is different because a record label is investing in master ownership. Whereas the consumer of an NFT isn't, in the sense that they can exploit it. They can't exploit it in terms of royalties. They're not getting syncs and getting money off of that. It's actually really unclear at this point.
I don't want that's why I don't want the crypto bros coming for you too. Like, some artists are including royalties, sometimes they're streaming royalties, sometimes actual master royalties in their NFTs. Like, everything.
That's what Super Duper Kyle is doing right now.
So, but a lot of artists aren't. Like, I don't have the data on this. I don't think anybody does, but I would say that most aren't. So most are probably what you're talking about, Pain, but some are, because I think Nas has an NFT drop happening soon, and I think you do get a percentage of the streaming royalties, not master ownership, but you get a percentage of the streaming royalties.
That's interesting. Then I'm wrong, and I don't know much about it. It feels it will be interesting then, because the average artist doesn't understand how that stuff works, let alone the average consumer. So that, I don't know. There's a lot. This is a really dense topic.
People are gonna find out really quick how bad of an investment music really is. Like, that's what they're about to find out. What's going to be interesting is, fast forward a year, 2 years from now, like, what the secondary market looks like for a majority of these NFTs that people bought as an investment, right? Because we know, having been in the music industry for some time, that very few artists make it. So you might invest in an artist and they don't go anywhere, or they decide to stop making music. I mean, you're going to get your artist every now and again that becomes a Taylor Swift or somebody bigger. But, obviously that's not going to be for most artists. So the people that are getting into it because they think they're going to, like, really catch an artist that, is going to blow, like I said, it'll just be interesting to see what happens in the secondary market in a year or two's time, when, most of these NFTs don't become valuable, like a Bored Ape. There's just a lot of money in crypto right now, so get in while you can and get your bread, because I just feel like the supply is gonna way outpace demand very quickly, because if these 70,000 songs that get uploaded to Spotify start turning into 70,000 NFTs that get minted daily, I don't know who's still going to be investing a lot of money in this. So get in now.
Even with the Tory Lanez album that came out as an NFT, people were rushing to purchase that. It was $1 per album, and people were buying up multiple copies. And I talked to one. There was, as you put it, I didn't use the term, an NFT bro coming at me, talking about how I was an idiot. I didn't know anything in the comments section, and said, yeah, Tory Lanez, his album, his NFT resold for up to 50,000. And I'm like, no, it didn't. And I looked it up, and it was,
it's for sale for 50,000, but it hasn't sold.
Yeah. And it won't, because when you think about it, in terms of supply and demand, there were 1 million versions of that NFT minted, right?
Yeah.
There's no way, just in terms of the numbers, that doesn't make any sense. And then on top of it, I had someone in my inbox on my email list, shout out to him, telling me that he bought several copies of the NFT and was really excited about it. And then I think months later was like, yeah, I can't even sell it for what I purchased it for. Which is just to say, it's a confusing market that not everybody understands. And it's so new. Everyone's just trying to figure it out. There's this initial excitement, but right now it's chaotic. And so people are making a lot of claims, and I'm skeptical of all of them. I don't understand why skepticism about NFTs draws such visceral anger from people who are invested in them.
Because they don't want to think that, like, they're a part of the fool's gold, because there's, like, the real gold, There's the fool's gold, which corrupted most of the people who came out to search for gold. And then there's the people making like the tools for all of the fools that are digging. You know, that's the business that I'm trying to figure out how to get into. And I'm not calling everybody foolish for digging, but it's like, somebody tweeted this the other day. The person who made the most during the gold rush were people who actually sold axes and picks, not the people mining for gold. And I was like, yeah, I want to sell axes and picks.
Well, axes and picks are practical. They have a practical application and they have actual value, tangible value. Whereas, you know, this idea, this potential isn't necessarily valuable in any sort of real way. Unless something crazy happens and people are counting on something crazy happening. I just, you know, in terms of investing our money and banking our financial futures on something that is so new, there should be skepticism. There should be excitement, but there should be a level of skepticism as well. And there should be education too. So I don't know.
And I don't want people to think that we're writing off NFTs. I think NFTs are here to stay. There's a lot of utility in them. I would say that there's a portion of artists right now that are kind of using NFTs as kind of like a crowdfunding mechanism. And if you're doing that and just doing that, that's a very short-term strategy, even if the first one is a win, because you can't keep going back to the crowdfund, right? Like that's why people can't keep having like successful Kickstarters without having a successful community that you're building, right? Even if you did a one-off and then, you know, things kind of fell for you, like people aren't going to keep supporting unless they see that you've continuously built a community that has value and you're really moving. So that's not to say you can't keep doing a Kickstarter, but
yeah, I was going to say, yeah, you definitely can, because I've done it. I think 3 albums straight with Soul, and it was always successful. But that's because of the fans, and that's decades in the making.
Right. That's the community that you built. But I'm saying if you do a Kickstarter and then you just go back to doing the same thing, people are going to be like, I'm not supporting this shit again. Like nothing really happened. Like nothing was built. But then there are also people that are, you know, dipping into NFTs for investments, and they're going to learn, like I said, really quickly that's not the move. But I think if you're using the utility of NFTs to create experiences, to build community, or to create experiences for your fans that are very unique, like that's the type of stuff that I think is here to stay. And the same stuff that we do to build a successful career and community in Web 2 is going to be the same thing you have to do in Web 3 in order for your NFTs to be valuable long term. So to me, I think we're still playing the same game. And for the people that think that NFTs are going to do away with labels, I'm going to have that debate too with EQ, because they post a lot about that. So
that's the debate. That's the one that
I look forward to that discussion.
That's a hill to die on.
Yeah, so we don't
have fans, then it doesn't matter. That's really the point. Like, this is not the fix for not having fans.
Anything and I think can that's replace what a label if you have fans.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of indie artists, I see so many, I'm making an NFT, we're going to talk about it. It's like, first of all, 1% of the world is only involved in this. So you have to educate your crowd. If you already only have 1,000 fans, which is a good fan base, now the conversion rate is still probably going to be 1%, right? So now you're trying to now sell to that 1% who may or may not be in the world. People just got to understand, like, this is not a fix for not having fans. Like you said, you have to do the same thing, hand-to-hand combat, Web 2, Web 3. Everybody's got to build an organic community that is invested in what you do as an artist.
Yeah, that's the way I see it. But you know, we can get to your topic, Pain. I don't want to keep beating a dead horse here, but you know, there is a lot of money in crypto, and people are throwing things around. So it is, if you're gonna get in and figure out your strategy early now. And it's not like a quick cash grab either. You have to really authentically tap into what is going on, learn what's going on, because there's, you know, we hear highlights of all of the NFT drops that have been super successful, but most aren't. Like most aren't successful. Most don't raise $10,000, $20,000, $1 million. Like there's a lot of NFTs that are sitting on these platforms going unnoticed or unsold.
Yeah. So my topic is more traditional music industry, which usually means I'm going to tell a bad story, but I swear there's a light at the end of this tunnel. So a pretty big producer spoke about an experience that I've experienced firsthand. So this is why I'm speaking on it. There's an artist, Dubba AA, who is probably best known for producing for Kodak Black, NBA Youngboy. And he went on Math Hoffa's podcast. All right, I didn't know Math Hoffa had a podcast, but
it's good.
Yeah. It's like in a barbershop, I think, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and its production value is great. Shout out to that. Anyway, he talked about how he was a broke college student selling plasma, etc., who sent multiple beats to Kodak Black, and Kodak's management kept, brushing him off when he asked for money for the tracks, and the tracks had already been released and they were doing well, which is, a lot of producers are watching this. I mean, like, yeah, that happened to me too. It happens all the time. Anyway, at one point they invite him out to a session, and I think he had to sell plasma to get the ticket. Anyway, so he shows up to the session, and someone from Kodak's team, probably a manager, says, okay, well, I'll give you something to hold you over. Here's $400. So he took the $400, right? And at this point, I think maybe like 2 or 3 or 4 songs had come out. So he gives him the $400 and tells him, and I apologize if I'm not retelling the story as well as possible, tells him, go watch the podcast. He tells him, don't tell anyone, but Atlantic Records is signing Kodak, or he already signed. So, that's coming. That's on the way. Anyway, Kodak signs to Atlantic.
So this is before he blew up?
Yeah, this is like right as it's happening, because he's starting to get millions of views, and that's why Atlantic is paying attention. So they signed him. And according to Dubba AA, Atlantic told him when he contacted Atlantic to talk business, or either they contacted him or he contacted them, they told him, well, from what I understand, they gave you $400, didn't they? And he was like, yeah. And then they said, well, we don't owe you anything. So Atlantic had no paperwork, because there never was any paperwork, nor was there an agreement, anything formal. It was just kind of someone's word against someone else's word.
And those songs that he released prior to signing were now under the ownership of Atlantic?
Yeah. That's what it was and the only reason that I'm so confident about this, so this happened to me with the same A&R in Atlantic. They said their name in the podcast multiple times. Now, for me, I'm not going to say names because there are other people involved, and it's not about the people; it's about the lesson. So it's not a sad story, as I said. This is actually a motivational story, or maybe, if nothing else, it's a teachable moment. About standing up for yourself, because in my situation, I should say in our situation, but I'm not saying the names of everyone else. Someone hired a lawyer, and I swear it was the same scenario. Someone on the side of the team of the artist offered up some ridiculous lowball number, and it was always like, yeah, this is what it is now, but we got you later. So just deal with this now, take this little money now, and later on, we'll handle more. Because now Atlantic has a buffer. They're like, well, you already handled it with these people. That it's out of our hands. We don't owe you anything. Anyway, someone on my side of the situation hired a lawyer, and I knew what was going on. Someone on my side hired a lawyer, and suddenly that couple $100 side offer became a much fairer situation. Obviously, you have to pay the lawyer. A lot of producers are like, I'm not paying the lawyer. I'm not making anything. That's stupid. If you ever thought that, you're an idiot. I'm sorry. And bad things are going to happen to you. I'm telling you how not to have those bad things happen to you. It's sad that this happens. I do want you to be cautious here. Don't take money without any type of agreement. Don't do these handshake agreements, and don't trust people who say they got you, because they do not. If someone is telling you that they got you but can't actually formalize it, they are lying to you. Get things in writing, and if you can't get things in writing, protect yourself by any means. You have to be skeptical. And if you end up falling for one of these traps, nothing's in writing. So it's just your word against theirs. There's still a chance that you can salvage that situation. The times that I see producers really fucked up is when they've signed something, and Mike Trampy posts these agreements all the time, and I'm shocked at how crazy they are. Literally, he posted one that said, this producer, out of the goodness of their heart, using that terminology, using out of the goodness of their heart, is granting artists a free copy of this beat and full ownership. I'm like, who would sign this? But people are signing this, and then after the fact, they're like, I didn't know. Come on, you have a phone, you can look up these words, you know what in perpetuity means, you know what no royalties mean. Like, the paperwork can be really tricky sometimes, but the words are still the same. They can't say no royalties without saying no royalties. You know what I mean? Like, you can get to the bottom of something, and if you don't understand what it is in the contract, don't sign it. Just don't. Let me just stop talking now. Just say that. Don't sign it. Get a damn lawyer, or don't sign it, or both. My advice is do that. Don't disrespect people. Don't turn it into a personal thing. Stay calm. Have a lawyer handle it. I know the impulse is to snap. For me, absolutely. My impulse is to snap because they're playing with my life when they pull this stuff. That's what they do. That's what needs to change. If you want to protect yourself in the situation, keep a cool head, because if you don't, you may not be able to proceed in a way that reaches a resolution that's beneficial to you. You might just end up in an ugly situation, and then you're walking things back that you said, blah, blah, blah. Don't do it. But I think that episode in the podcast was a valuable lesson for producers for what to watch out for, because producers, if someone hands you some money and says, okay, this will tide you over, we got you later, you'll get more money later, or some kind of vague promise like, yeah, here's a little bit of money for the beats, just wait, we got you. Red flag, red flag, red flag.
Well, that was something else that LaRussell and I talked about on the session this past Monday, because he said he doesn't sign contracts. But he made a very good point after that. And I think that, we should be pushing forward for changes in terms of contracts, just like they do like credit cards now, or like loans, right? I think it's required that it needs to be more simple. I mean, it's still a longer contract and there's stuff that you probably don't understand, but there typically is a box now that says, how much in interest you're going to be paying over the life of that loan. And they make it very bold and very clear. And that's basically what LaRussell was saying. Like, I'm not signing a contract if we have a conversation and we're both on the same page on what it is that we're doing. But then you send me a contract and I don't understand it, and I need to hire somebody to basically translate it for me. I'm not signing that contract. So, I get him 100%. He has dope energy. He's Bay Area to the core. I love it. But I think that should be the case too for like, beat contracts or artist contracts. Like, it should be very clear. Like, a normal person that didn't go to law school should be able to understand exactly what's in the contract. And if we need to put it in a box and highlight certain words or use similar terminology, like, yeah. I'm all for stuff like that, because we should be able to read these contracts. And that doesn't X out the lawyer completely. I still think we need a lawyer to negotiate these things and, understand what's fair, what's not, things like that. But we should all be able to read contracts and understand them.
And yeah, there should be some kind of page with just the deal points outlined, at least, the important ones. This is the advance, this is the royalty rate, this is how the recoupment works, here's the split sheet, here are the point bumps, here's what the credits will read, here's the payment.
I feel like a lot of times they send that though, right? They send it first. What do they call that?
The deal memo.
Yeah, but then that's the tricky thing. They'll send the deal memo and you're like, oh, this isn't hard to decipher. And then they send that 73-page contract. That's actually one of the tenets of my company, Build Your Own Dreams. If it's not stated in plain language for our artists to be able to understand, then we are not sending it as a contract. I think it's so like even my manager's contract, I paid a lawyer to make it for me. And I'm like, I can read contracts decently. I'm a manager. I had to learn that. But I was like, simplify, simplify, simplify. So even for our artists, our contracts are 1 page. And then we have like addendums if there's anything extra, but it's all written in plain language. We don't even have like a percentage rate. We're like, this is the amount of money that you have to recoup before you get your masters back. Because, we just lease the masters so that we never own their intellectual property. So it's like, here's the recoup, here's the money we're giving you, here's the additional amount that you have to recoup, and then everything is a profit share after that. And then we define a profit share. And then we're like, hey, call Erinn if you have any other questions. They don't even have to call my lawyer. And our lawyer is the one who drew it up. But if I can't explain what's in the contract, that's an issue, much less my artist who I know I'm on their side. And I get that everybody's got to represent their own interests. But I think that there's so much bullshit in this industry where everybody's trying to keep the door closed for especially like Black and brown creatives, not having access to a lot of this understanding and knowledge. And so I agree that it's dumb to not have a lawyer paying, but I also think it's like, I think that the world is so ass backwards in the way that it treats people, that it's like, well, we're going to get really creative with the language. My lawyer said typically the stuff that's on the first 3 pages is undone 6 pages later. And even that, it's like, it's so mind blowing to think that that's how the legal world works. And I'm not blaming this on attorneys. I just think stuff has got to change. So I like that, what LaRussell said. I think if we have agreement, it should be clear what's going on.
Yeah. And I know that artists are going to hear this and it'll be like, yeah, we could have avoided a lot of bullshit. But I think that even if contracts had a box that said, this is what we're giving you, this is how many albums you have to sell in order to recoup, to get an additional penny after what we've given you, even if that number was there and it was ridiculously big, because it probably is for most artists, they're probably still going to sign it. Like, they're still going to sign it.
They want the affiliation and they want the upfront check. You're right. It's a fact.
Yeah. So, I mean, it should be that way. And maybe some people would have not signed, but I feel like a majority of artists would have still, wanted to say they signed to a label, wanted to work with bigger artists and things like that. So, yeah, just throwing that out there. My topic was going to be fairly short. Because it came out of my conversation with LaRussell. I posted yesterday because he posts content daily. I think Erinn already talked about it early in the podcast. He posts 3 times a day. Essentially, he says it gives him 3 opportunities for himself to blow up. Over 1,000 opportunities a year for himself to blow up. And then there was a comment below it that obviously, somebody has to come back and say something negative, but it's not just negative. I think a lot of people feel this way, like, hey, but what if I have a family, or what if I have a job?
Oh my God, man, I'm so sick of hearing that shit. I'm so stopped with that shit.
But I want to give
made a choice to have a family. Be happy with your family. Love your family. Pain, I can't be like you because I had kids and I got a wife. You did that. That didn't just happen to you.
But
you did it.
Yes.
Like, you think I'm happy being single? You think that's not a sacrifice?
Okay, we're touching on different pain points here. But I want to give people some solution to, because there's no, you don't get any credits or anything. Nobody's going to take it easier on you. Nobody's going to put on the kid gloves if you want a career in this industry. And I get that we all have different circumstances. Some people have more resources. Some people have families. Some people get sick. Like, I get all that. And I want to be sympathetic towards it. But at the same time, I want to give them some suggestions on how to have those things and still be productive, because I think it really comes back to, you know, maybe eliminating some distractions, but it's also about getting organized and having a plan on what you're actually doing and what your content is, right? Even like the structure of the MEC, right? We meet to record our podcast every Wednesday at 8 a.m. and I do my live session every Monday at 12 p.m. Like, I know those are in my schedule, and a lot of content is going to come from that. You know, we know kind of what we talk about. We know who we are and what we do and what service we provide. So I think if artists, you know, they always say, hey, I'm creative, I can't be put in a box and things like that. But you have to try to get organized, especially if you have a lot of other shit going on. So if you can kind of compartmentalize things and have a good understanding of who you are and the message you're trying to tell, that will then lead to hopefully some ideas of what type of content you create in your brand and the messaging that you're trying to tell people, so that you can knock out a shitload of content in a little bit of time and then spread that content over the week. And just, you know, if Sunday's your only day to create, LaRussell said him and his team created 81 pieces of content in 4 days. So, you know, if you don't have a team that can help you do that, I'm not saying you need to create 81 pieces of content, but you can put a few hours aside on a Sunday and knock out 12 pieces of content, right? But that's if you know your brand, and that's if you know like what you're doing, what you're trying to communicate. So all that needs to be up front, and then your organization needs to be up front to make your time more useful, and you can create more content. So you guys have any more suggestions on how people that don't have much time or that have families can still create content?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the schedule. Same thing. I don't have a family. I have the same sacrifice that Pain feels. I have the pain there about it, but I'm terrible at even shooting my own content. So I know every time I go to Austin, my business partner has a camera, and our creative director has audio equipment. We'll schedule 4 hours in the studio, but leading up to that, we literally have a note, and we're like, here are the 60 topics we want to cover in reels, right? And it's like marathon. We rent a studio for 4 hours, and it's like boom, boom, boom. We did that in September. We have been posting that content every other day since September. That's how much we have. I go back to Austin really soon, and we're going to do it again. But I think, you know, I don't have a family, but I own 3 businesses, and I just launched a new project, and I manage 3 artists, you know what I'm saying? And I brand manage for 2 other companies. So I think the exchange for me is about the same. I'm not sitting around making content. I'm running businesses. So for me, content is the last thing I'm thinking about, but I know for at least one of my companies to thrive, I'd say you got to figure it out. You know, it's a job. And if you want to be a full-time creative, you have to look at it as a job. And too many people think that being a creative just means sitting around smoking weed and recording songs and then sending them to your manager, and then your manager does everything. And that's not what this is at all. You are a business. You need to treat yourself as a business. And if you are not yet lucrative, you have to set the time aside to get yourself in that practice, and then you will become that way. It's going to line up for you if you treat it that way. But most people don't. Most people say, oh, I'm putting in hours and nothing's happening. You're sitting in the studio for hours, but you're not doing all the other business practices, which is why you don't typically see yourself successful. I think anything is a cop-out these days, and no disrespect to people with families, but anything is a cop-out these days.
Well, I just don't like when people use their families as the excuse, because you created a family intentionally. Like, I don't want to get into the whole accidental. Sometimes.
Most times, hopefully. I mean, everybody's situation is different.
But even but that's what I mean. I don't want to get in the conversation about, oops, we had an accident. You know what your penis does anyway. That's not, I'm not spending time on that. I just mean a family should be something that you love. It should be something you embrace. If it's not, that's something that you really need to figure out separately from music. And, you know, if your impulse is, if you're bitter that you can't create music because you feel like your family's holding you back, again, the answer is probably therapy. Figure that out, because you're going to start resenting them, and that's not fair to them. look at Aaron's shirt, take a deep breath, because that's a toxic thought. It's poisoning your brain. In terms of content, here's the thing. This is what I tell people when they really start complaining and they have every excuse in the book as to why every piece of advice we offer isn't feasible for them when it comes to career building. Here's the beautiful thing. You don't have to have a music career. That's the thing. There's no music career mandate. There's no law that says you have to create content and be a successful musician. You don't have to do that. You can do whatever you want other than this. If you really don't want to do this, if you feel like posting on TikTok or YouTube or whatever is too much for you and it's beneath you and blah, blah, then don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't want to say anything negative, but yeah. But even when Erinn said that she doesn't really do, she doesn't do camera stuff well, but she has the resources, to still get stuff done. Before you use that as a crutch, I would tell people, just start and get better over time. Like, your first pieces of content are probably going to be terrible. I know that the MEC is not top notch in like production quality, but it's definitely gotten better over the years. I asked Pain about mics. I asked about, cameras, I play with the lighting, things like that. All that stuff can be learned. So that too is if you're trying to use that as an excuse on why you're not making content, go to YouTube. Like, there really is no excuses at this point. If you're making excuses, you're just going to be part of the bunch that's never successful. So, I see that comment all the time, and I just wanted to hopefully provide some, suggestions on how you might be able to organize yourself. But yeah, it's not really about addressing negative comments. I just wanted to give people some suggestions.
I made it about addressing negative comments. Sorry, it's just a frustrating comment.
Let me add one more suggestion. I had an artist tweet recently. He said something about needing more money, and I was like, "Why do you need more money?" Or he said, "How do you independent artists get mixing and mastering, album artwork, whatever, and still pay your bills?" And so I said, well, you have to barter skills. I said, I bartered skills before I had money for anything. I still barter all the time because nobody can afford to pay for everything that they need all the time. You just have to figure it out. So not nobody, but the vast majority of people can't. So I was like, well, what skills can you barter? And he was like, well, I'm a good songwriter. I said, nobody needs another songwriter like that, not on the independent side. What else can you do? He was like, well, I'm learning to mix and master so that it's not as expensive for me. So I said, okay, find another artist who can, or he said he's learning to mix. I said, find another artist who can master that's really good at that. Switch, whatever. And I'm telling him about bartering. And I said, but how many kids do you have? And he was like, well, I have an older daughter and a baby. I said, have your daughter draw your album artwork, make being part of your fatherhood, part of your story. That's part of your story. And I said, now you have unique artwork. Your daughter has a vested interest in your career. Now she's looking forward to things that you're doing. And now you have a different thing than just trying to look cool on the internet. People are like, oh, he's including his kids and he's a rapper, whatever. And he was like, oh my God, my daughter is great at drawing pictures. She's 6. She would love that. And I'm like, nobody else, you just have to vector the image. So then he starts thinking, he's like, wow, I've never thought like this. And again, this is shameless plug. This is why you need to get into the Excellence Academy. It's like there are answers in front of you. You just have to think about what do I have? I have a cell phone. I have a computer. I have a friend who has, you got to really get creative. Make what your disadvantage, your advantage. Figure out how you can fit that into what you're doing. So there's, again, no excuse. If you want something, you will figure out how to get it. If you eat every day, you figured that out. Make this like eating, make it vital. If it's not that vital, let's stop complaining about it.
And the last thing I would say also is that, stuff doesn't even really need to be polished to take off these days. Now, I'm not saying I don't care about mixing and I don't care about quality, but if you don't have access to those things, that should not be the thing that stops your music from coming out. There's a lot of music that's been unmixed. It's been rough around the edges. that's come out and streamed really well and created a lot of revenue for people. And then some of those songs, like they even go back and like redo them and release another version. So I'm not here for the excuses. Get better, learn, barter, organize. All these things are super helpful. I'm just not with the excuses.
Cool. On that note, make no excuses for tuning into our free music business mentorship program twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on www.beatstars.live. And don't use missing it as an excuse, because you can text us and you'll get alerts every time we go live. Dame, let them know how to do that.
Yep, you could text MEC to 844-206-7800. You'll get an alert right before we go live. Lots of dope sessions coming up. We got Z from DJ Booth, Audio Mac coming in a few weeks. We got NFT discussions. I think the next one is with Single Music. The next Monday one is with Single Music. You have the ability now to sell NFTs from your Shopify platform. And then the next week we have Janice, the founder of EQ, coming on, where I get to play devil's advocate and, hopefully learn some new things. But we got a lot of dope sessions coming up. I know, Pain, you got a bunch of dope sessions coming up. Erinn, who's your first guest in February? Do you know that already?
Her name is Liv. She's Trippie Red's social media manager, but she runs marketing for a bunch of different agencies and artists. So she's phenomenal.
Okay, Gemini 2 Fly, is that her?
Yes, that's her.
Okay, dope. Cool. All right, yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Rock with us unless you know everything already.
I appreciate you tuning in. Peace.